Just going to let our players know that we are in the booth. Decided on not using the camera in the end for these league matches, at least for now. It'll give us a chance to check out chat and see how things are going. So today we've got Trek against MacGuffin here, playing off in MSEM League. We are quite a ways into the month now, about halfway through, so these are definitely coming in while GP and the Team Unified Constructed matches are playing. Now, I had the great fortune of playing against Trek's deck this morning. Trek is on this really great artifact-based combo deck, which can essentially blow out infinite amounts of damage out of nowhere using cards such as Vivid March, which I'll leave here on the screen just for a little bit, and any other card that deals damage when a token is either sacrificed, which can happen really quickly in this format. So we've got a shock fetch here coming off at the beginning, going to give us a bit of starting mana. And meanwhile, let's look at MacGuffin's hand. So MacGuffin was talking to me in DMs about this. We have a Chiheisen based deck, which is a legendary enchantment, which lets you pick a creature card, and then that creature card, whenever you cast it, will cost 2 less. It has a really funny tool where it can pull out some 3/3 haste creatures that cost 2, but can't be cast using land mana, I believe, out of your sideboard. But for now, we are going to probably start with a Hierarch Ranger, one of our format's premium mana dorks. Fantastic card here. On the other side, we have a Tide Hollow Lich that was played. Very easy to recur creature. Can't block, but this is one sticky card. It is very hard to get rid of. It is very easy to have other artifact creatures lying around. So we're firing off the Devised Companions, which creates a 1/1 colorless construct, but if you control another artifact, you get 3. So a very easy way of getting a very wide board right off the start. Little damage trading back and forth here. Mana base is costing a bit of life for both players here, but nothing too serious. So Chiheisen's going to draw a card, and then MacGuffin's going to pick a name for the terrace, which will be Voiceless Assailant. And here it is, coming down. It's going to cost nothing, and of course it will let you draw 3 more. One of our format's little Cobblades, except this one doesn't have flying, but it is colorless. So one Chiheisen lets you immediately drop out a big board of 2/1 colorless. Slightly weak to cards like Metal Munch or any 1 damage sweeper, though I don't think we'll be seeing much of that here in the first match. Likely we'll be seeing it in rounds 2 and 3 post sideboard. Vault Keeper coming down. Fantastic card. Key piece of this package: whenever another artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life, followed by the second Devised Companion. So now these 1/1 constructs are really scary to block and work as trades, given the fact that Vault Keeper can turn them into quite a substantial amount of damage here. MacGuffin's going to think about which creatures, if any, are going to block here. While we do that, I'll take the opportunity to load up my channel here on my secondary screen, which is perfect. While we do that, I can give a little bit of a look at what we've got in MacGuffin's hand. We've got another Journey, so another enchantment like Chiheisen, which gives creatures you control with the chosen name +1/+1. So these cards were designed based off of Magic Conspiracy cards, as well as the Pick-Me's from Cold Snap. So I always wanted a black border conspiracy-like card, and these enchantments were the thing. MacGuffin choosing not to block, taking 5 damage here, going to 10. We've got Hierarch Ranger here, who is going to tap to give another creature +1/+1, and that lets MacGuffin provide 1 mana of any color here. Journey through Kareki coming down. All those Voiceless Assailants are now quite big. Of course, there's still plenty of colorless constructs on the other side of the field that can block, but now the trades will be very different. A lot of lands in hands. A lot of our format's premium lands, these duels, something like Shifting Tundra. And we are playing out the Idol of the Dead God, which is another Cobblade-like, this one being a 1/1 flyer for 2. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can search your library for more of them. So that should about wrap up MacGuffin's main phase here, which should be bringing us to the combat step. Now, the question is what is going to stay back to block, and what is going to swing in? In the meantime, as I said, we can go and look at a few more of the lands in the format. Of course, I don't expect that everyone following this channel plays MSEM, so maybe you're just following for the first time. Our format's premium fetches are the aptly named shock fetches, so they function very similar to a shock land where you may opt to pay 2 life to have them enter the battlefield tapped or not. And of course, they search for forests or islands, as is the case for Mysterious Cataract. So we're going with a few attacks, leaving behind at least some blockers. And we're going for a swing of 10 here. Some colorless construct tokens are going to come in for the defense. And we're going to see a double block to remove one of the voiceless assailants. So 7 damage is going to go through. But at the same time, because 2 creatures, artifacts have died, we're going to regain 2 of that life and throw 2 damage towards MacGuffin. On the draw here, we see a very fantastic card. It's Master of Munitions. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Master of Munitions deals 1 damage. And that's part of the combo here. I'm going to mouse over Vivid March so you can see how that works out. It gives a creature trample, and whenever that creature deals damage to a player this turn, you get a Lotus Petal, which is just another named treasure token. So all you need to do is to have 1 artifact trigger for Master of Munitions to pop off that 1 damage. And then, of course, Vivid March will create a treasure, which you will deal another damage, which will create a treasure, which you will deal another damage, and so on and so forth. So throwing in the Tide Hollow Lich into combat, because if that gets into the yard next turn, you can simply pay the black to cast it back as the artifact that you need to trigger everything. MacGuffin, knowing that does not block, simply takes the 2 damage. We've got a Hierarch Ranger again. It's going to produce a little bit of mana here. Encourage the creature. Idol of the Dead God is going to go up to a 2/2, and we're going to cast one of our format's really good 2-mana draw spells here, Ominous Discovery, from the new set Video Horror System, which has been out for a few months now. You're going to look at the top 3, 1 in your hand, rest into your graveyard, and it has the very powerful rerun ability. If it was cast from your hand, you exile as it resolves, and whenever a creature you control dies, you may then cast it without paying its mana cost. Definitely a very strong card, a very polarizing card. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we see a slight change to this card, but in the meantime, we are going to use it. Putting it under here are Can Be Cast from Exile, a reminder card. You picked up a Journey through Kareki number 2. Of course, the question is, are we throwing it down to make our voiceless assailants 1 more bigger, or do we try and get in with Idol of the Dead God and make our idols all 1 bigger, being flying? Just had my lovely wife arrive back from some groceries here. MacGuffin conceding the match here. some very scary things on the other side of the board. So we're going to move in here to sideboards. Fortunately, part of the league is I do not have these deck lists up to observe, so we're going to have to wait a little bit. Seeing if there's any cards that I can show that we didn't get a chance to look at. We've got Master of Masks here, a really clever card from unfortunately a rather old set at this point, but it's definitely one of my favorite ones. You can simply cast it as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. Of course, you have to pay the cost, but you need to control an island. So kind of a clone in hand that you can cast for very cheap if it's targeting one mana creatures, for example. Let's see what else we haven't had a chance to see. We did mouse over Gloom Cover Steep, one of our other premium dual lands here in the format. Our check duels. They require, of course, a basic plains or a basic swamp. So one of the key format features is a lot of our dual lands here, such as Shifting Glade costing you life unless you control basic lands, and the check duels requiring basic lands mean that we have a nice little density of basics that have to show up in most decks for you to make best use of them. So we've got a hand of 6 against a hand of 7 here. McGuffin's hand looks very similar to the last time Hierarch Ranger. Give yourself a little more mana. We've got the Journey, we've got the Chiheisen. Unfortunately, we do not have one of those starting Cobblade type cards. Up on the top here, plenty of mana. We've got our format's very own Ragavan. No format is complete without a monkey. Ours might be a slightly worse Ragavan, and it's still perfectly playable. A 2-1 for 1. As long as you control 2 or more other pirates, it has haste. And of course, whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal combat damage to a player, you get a tapped treasure token. Ragavan itself is a pirate, and therefore doesn't need much support to function. In this deck, creating that tapped treasure token is phenomenal. We've got Device Companions, which we saw last game, Vivid March, and Nihilistic Shock Trooper here. Very hard to read, so I'm actually going to switch over to the text base so you can see it. It is a 2/2. I'm going to give us a little room to read that here in the description. Once each turn, when a creature dies, you may crystallize, which lets you either put a counter on a creature you control or create a treasure. And whenever an artifact you control dies, Nihilistic Shock Trooper deals 1 damage to each opponent. So another card that lets you profit off those artifacts of dealing damage, and therefore works with Vivid March. So up on the bottom here, we drew into that Voiceless Assailant, cast them off Chiheisen. Master of Masks is going to be cast for free, considering that Chiheisen lets you cast it. So we have a very big board here. Change the name. Lots of 2-1s, 5 2-1s in fact. Very explosive start. Of course, if we hadn't drawn into that, this would have been a much slower start of the match here. Shardstone Rift coming down, paying 2 life so that you can immediately crack it for some lands. I would assume that, given the fact that there's no way Ragavan is going to get through, we are either going to see a Device Companion to... Oh, never mind. We're not going to see a Device Companion because we don't control an artifact, which means we are not going to get 3 1/1s. So my best guess would be we're either going to see a second Ragavan or Nihilistic Shock Trooper is going to come out. Yep. So to be clear, Nihilistic Shock Trooper triggers on whenever a creature dies once each turn, so it doesn't have to be yours. Those counters and that treasure might make a bit of a difference here. Yeah, so no surprise, no attack from Ragavan. Fetch-wise, we've gotten fetch 2 basics, so whatever dual lands are coming out next will either be untapped or will not cost that player life. We've drawn into our copy of Ominous Discovery. We had seen Journey through Kareki last round. I'm just going to mouse over here so you can see this very lovely Secret Lair Jade Vault Reclaimer that we have here. It is our format's very strong artifact and enchantment removal. Spirited Mechanic lets you activate an activated ability of the creature when it enters the battlefield. So you get 1 free use of a Naturalize when you play a Jade Vault Reclaimer, and then later on in the game, if you've got 4 mana to spend, you can always sacrifice it to get a second one. Wayfarer's Shrine being played out here, which is our Prismatic Vista. Funnily enough, this one predates the real Prismatic Vista by somewhere in the ballpark of 2 or 3 years. If you like cards like these, we actually have a From the Vault Wayfarer's Shrine here in the format, which any designer is allowed to pitch in their own Wayfarer's Shrine from their own sets or sets that they've submitted, as long as you meet submission requirements and have been playing in the format. So Journey Through Koreki coming down, of course, naming Voiceless Assailant. All these assailants are going to be quite big, especially with the Hierarch Ranger giving them the +1/+1. So we're swinging with all 5 of them. It is a very big swing, especially on turn 3. Ragavan's going to go and block one of them, try to absorb some of that damage, but we're going to keep the Nihilistic Shock Trooper back, taking 9 and then 4. Okay, I was just making sure that we had the damage total correct. So we've taken 9 here from the 3 power ones and an additional 4, going all the way down to 3. Of course, a creature has died. We now get a treasure, which means, I believe, that if we throw a Vivid March here, we're slowly on our way, but we're going to need a little more than that. Of course, let's not forget this is, yeah, here we go. So Vivid March gives Nihilistic Shock Trooper, whenever that creature deals damage to a player this turn, you get a Lotus Petal, which means that as soon as we crack that treasure, Nihilistic Shock Trooper will deal a damage. The damage will re-trigger Vivid March, which will create a Lotus Petal. It is a very scary and very easy to assemble 2-card combo, especially given the fact that the pieces are so inexpensive. You can most likely look forward to pieces like Vivid March being discussed in council chats very soon. So that's the GG here. Pretty phenomenal. Both boards assembled some really scary stuff, but without an interaction like that, that is just simply a wrap. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we can get some more League games going quicker this time around. I don't plan on staying live in between leagues. That way I can just simply download these as videos on demand. So if you ever want to watch the recatch, you can head on over to the YouTube channel, and hopefully we will see each other very soon, hopefully later today, for some more League matches. So take care, everyone.